Hello, everybody, and welcome to another My Music. Now, I already got to apologise to my guest today because I completely forgot about this interview or conversation because of complete tech failure, which is something that you all out there may have struggled with yourselves in the modern world. And my calendar system, which I live by, it just failed to ping up that I should be here, but we are here now. We've made it, and that's you down to you, Louise, not down to me, because you very politely sort of pinged me and said, "Are we still on?" And we are, and so we will be talking to Louise, or Goodnight Louisa, any minute now, after we have this little video from the Analog Trash people, and we could be talking about music. We might even talk about David Hockney, who is in the background there, and one of my favorite artists. But here we go.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Thank you, Louise, for joining me. I like to keep things real, you see. I think there's too many people on the internet that are just kind of pretending that everything's fabulous. How do you feel about that whole dynamic, by the way, of, what's portrayed on the internet and, what needs to come out in terms of music and art, etc.?
I generally feel like, to be honest with you, I don't vibe very well with the internet. I find this sort of day and age that we're living in quite strange, and I honestly sometimes feel like I don't quite know who to believe and what's true and what's not. Like, I think it's quite a sort of like kind of weird utopian world we're living in at the moment. I mean, maybe it's always felt that way, but I think just the internet's like totally taken over in that regard. And I think as for artists, I think it can be really helpful, or really, really unhelpful. It depends on what kind of person you are, I think.
Yeah.
It's like everything's quite accessible now, but like it's almost like it's too accessible for its own good. But
Too accessible. Do you feel like there's too much noise out there?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I don't know how people like actually cope with that. Like people who don't mind that. Like I don't know. There's periods of time where I have to just delete it all, and I feel like those times are like those moments of calm.
Where's your favorite place to get away from it all?
This is going to sound really bad, but there's this really nice pub.
That doesn't sound bad. They're a dying breed, though. Really nice
pub here, up in Glasgow, called The Bell, and it's this sort of pub with like a fireplace, and there's like I don't think they play music. It's hard to tell, or whatever it is. It's so in the background that it's like becomes sort of part of the noise, and it's just like one of those pubs that you can just lose hours in talking to people, talking to your partner or your friends, or like whoever you're with. I think that's where I feel genuinely like the world is right.
I think that's lovely. I mean, I kind of miss that from growing up. That sounds really bad, but I kind of used to go, before I was of an age to drink, I used to go to the pub, and as I think a lot of my generation did, hanging out with perhaps people that could drink, but they were more just sociable areas, or where, as you say, people could sit and talk for hours and get into quite deep conversations about all sorts of things. I remember sort of sitting talking to people about C.S. Lewis versus Tolkien, and diving into deep literature and or just putting the world to rights. And now it seems like almost like, because even things like politics, right? I think back when I was a boy, talking about politics felt like there was you could talk about it without people necessarily immediately sort of judging you, but also I think everybody's become so sort of tired of politics that it's
Yeah.
not a conversation anymore. It's now just a almost like a freak show. I mean, certainly what we're seeing in America at the moment is
Yeah, no, totally.
incredibly scary.
I think it's like it's fascinating. It's like a car crash that you want to watch, but you should look away, but you can't. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. So I totally get, the vibe of wanting to sit in a pub and talk. What do you talk about when you're with people that you can?
I think just anything and everything really. Like I think I always kind of end up in this pub, like kind of in the. It's just going to sound terrible. I feel like I'm painting myself out as this day drinker. But kind of usually at like sort of like 4 or 5 p.m. like or like after work, and it's just such a nice place to go in. Like I feel like it makes you listen to people more, and you talk about the past or what you want to do, and it's funny. Like I can't quite put my finger on exactly what you talk about, but I think just it's pretty much what you touched upon there. Is that like you lose yourself to hours of connection with people, and like it's just sometimes like hard to leave because you don't. I always find it hard to leave because I don't want to go back out to like the noisy world. Like sometimes, and yeah, I think that I've had some really nice sort of conversations with like friends in there over the years. It's funny. I can't quite.
Well, now you see, this is interesting because
What they are, but they were nice.
No, I think this is interesting because I actually think your music's a bit like that.
All right.
Have you ever considered that your music is like those conversations where you don't want to leave?
Not personally. I've heard it all so many times I can't stand it anymore.
Really? Do you get to that point with your own music or not?
I think sometimes, yeah, it depends. I think there's various tracks. I think when you put out singles, and especially I think in the world that we're living in currently, you have to do so much, especially maybe if you don't have someone doing it for you, like a social media manager. You have to sort of listen to it again and again and sort of cut things down, edit things. I do a lot of my own like editing and stuff as well. So I feel like, yeah, sometimes by the end of it, I'm so sick of hearing my voice and seeing my face. It's that sort of like dissociation. I'm like, who is this person? Is this good? It sounds weird. I don't know. Is it all just
is that partly because of where it's going, do you think, though, as opposed to necessarily the art itself? Because you obviously passionately care about what you're making.
Yeah, I think there's a real, I mean, I definitely feel it, a real sort of tenseness around posting on social media. I mean, like I've always kind of loved making things for the sake of art, but now you've got to think about if it's too long or if it looks good or it's got to be vertical or there's all these sort of like, I mean, I've heard like people say like, oh, if your video's not vertical, then it's not going to reach X, Y, and Z, or it's not going to do as well. And it's like, you don't quite know what to believe. So there's all this other huge realm of like what you've got to think about, even just before you're already putting yourself on the line, like, because you're releasing something that you've worked on and it's vulnerable and like, and then you kind of got to think. I mean, one big thing for me is I'm always worried I'm going to spell something wrong.
Oh.
And like, I think that like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, I think, to make sure it like doesn't get lost, I suppose, but I don't really understand.
Well, there are a couple of things there. As someone that sort of works within that realm, is one, if you spell something wrong, it will probably do better.
Yeah,
because
they felt wrong.
a million people will then comment on the fact that it's wrong, and the algorithm will just pick it up and go, look, this is getting lots of attention. It doesn't know why it's getting lots of attention. It
Just
just,
purposely spell everything wrong now.
yeah, I think so. That could just be a thing. You know, that actually very plausibly could be a thing. I've known copywriters in the past. In fact, from time to time, I've even done it myself, where, you know, purposely misspelt something in a piece of copy in order to get more eyes on it, because it does work. Because you just know that there's going to be a group of people out there that are just going vulturing, and you go, yo, you couldn't spell, I don't know, you couldn't spell conscience right. Yeah, I actually spelled it like that. I actually spelled it wrong because I wanted to. You know, now sue me. But yeah. But do you find that when you're away from what's going on online and you're having those conversations and that energy from people, does that spill into your work? Do you find that energizes your work, or does that
being away from social media and things? Yeah, I think massively. I think the times where I feel like most inspired are times where I think I'm like reading what used to be a huge one. I used to read quite a lot, and that would really help, like being in that frame of mind of like storytelling, and like I've always been really sort of interested in creative writing and writing. I used to write stories a lot when I was younger, and I think that being able to put your phone down and ignore that noise and just sort of really sort of falling into that sort of escapism of books and things is such a huge thing that I love. I definitely don't do it enough. Like I've got not nearly enough books as I should have at the moment. But yeah, and I think just being with friends and having experiences, and I tend to remember like when I used to live in Edinburgh, I had this flat that had like a really nice window, and it looked out onto the roads, and it was in the kitchen, and it had like a sort of pillow, like you could sit. It was like a window seat. It was really nice, and I used to just sometimes like just have some wine and write and then sit and then look out this window with this, and it was just so calm, and like I don't know, it was just like the nicest thing. I was probably steaming. Didn't notice, and probably everyone could see me on the street. I often think what that must have looked like on the other side. This person hanging out the window at like 1 a.m. just.
It sounds and feels like places are quite important to you as well. That sort of spaces that give you, give you that kind of peace. Where are you geographically?
Currently, I'm in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you right in the middle of Glasgow? Are you? I mean, you're on quieter part, or
quite central here. I'd say it's like sort of residential where I'm staying, but like it's quite busy. It's a busy wee. It's not quite city centre, but it's like not far off either. But I quite like that. I like the noise. I like
having it there. You like kind of see. Are you a people watcher?
Yeah, I do. I live on quite an interesting road where it's like it should be like a one-way street, but it's a two-way street, and quite often there's a lot of like standoffs. Pretty much every day, like between two cars, and it is quite entertaining to watch. And yeah, you can see quite a lot from here actually, and into Glasgow. Quite lucky.
What in terms of the music? What kind of listener are you? What do you listen to?
I've been listening a lot to like KJ Pearson's been one that I've absolutely really liked, her new record. I went to see her as well at St Luke's, and she's someone I've kind of like loosely followed, I think, for like a wee while. I saw her play Hidden Door like about 5 or 6 years ago, and I really liked her music. I've actually been pretty terrible for listening to new music.
Do you keep? Are you a kind of listener that when you find something, you keep going back to it?
Yeah, I'm kind of an obsessive listener. I think that like takes me quite a long time to find another sort of thing to get obsessed about. Like I'll find an album and then I'll listen to it to death, and then it'll take me a while to find another one, but I'll still go back and listen to that record as well. I feel like I listen to music quite weirdly. Like I'm not always looking for new stuff. I should be. I think that sometimes I'm like I need to listen to some new stuff, but I always feel like it takes something quite interesting to catch my ear or like you know.
And when you find an artist that you like and that resonates with you, etc., do you, if they've got a catalogue, do you sort of explore the whole catalogue, or do you just or do you obsess about the one album that's caught your attention?
It depends. I think it varies. Like I remember when I first heard Saint Vincent. She's been a strong influence on me and many others.
What album was that? Where did you come in on that?
I feel like I came in at quite a weird point because it was just before she released her most famous record, the Mass Seduction one, and I stumbled upon a video on YouTube of one of her live sessions. Actually, I think it was from Strange Mercy, and
Yep.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought this live session was just, and I'd never quite seen someone. The music was just like it was like a synth, like musical, like it was almost like a Disney song that'd been written on synths, but not
Written on steroids. Yeah,
with not like the horrible shrieking vocals that it usually has on it, with a nice female vocalist. That was and I just was like really sort of like, I think I used to love when YouTube was a little bit bigger, like where you'd spend hours like looking for people's live sessions and stuff. I feel like that's something I'd do with friends a lot. Like we'd go around to my friend's flat and we'd have a drink and some dinner and we'd just sit and watch like people's live sessions or YouTube videos of music videos, and like that was how you discover new people, and that's kind of how I stumbled on St. Vincent.
Have you heard her album with David Byrne?
I have, yeah.
I for me that kind of makes a lot of sense, and kind of made a lot of sense about perhaps where she's coming from as well, because always felt that David Byrne had a real kind of sense of cinema as well, if you like, and there's a sense of cinema to St. Vincent's work as well. There's kind of a sense of, there's definitely a sense of kind of the bigger visual in that's at play there as well, and kind of the almost the, in some respects, I mean, sort of over the topness to something that's just sometimes quite simple and repetitive.
Yeah, quite like that. I like that she sort of creates these worlds. It's something that like one of my other favorite artists, like Madonna, does as well. Like did, I feel like when she brought out a new record, it was like a new persona. It was like a new version of Madonna. Like each time, I find that really interesting. Like it's not just
it was
music.
It was eras before eras.
Yeah.
It seems funny, like everybody doing eras now, when it's just an old-fashioned idea that people would redevelop themselves.
Yes, it's old as time.
Yeah, it's always been there, and you feel like kind of any artist that wants to progress with their music, everything that they release has got to be in some way a step forward and a reaction to what they've done before. That's kind of natural, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
in terms of your music, is where sound wise do you think you might go next? Because clearly at the moment it sits in that kind of slightly alternative. You've got, you've got a synthy, a bit like St. Vincent. You've got a synthy based sound, but with a bit of edge to it as well. Is there a place where it won't go?
I don't know actually, because I feel like with this record, this one I've been working on, and the ones that these songs are coming from, I actually sort of tried to push myself out the boat a little bit, and like have like there's quite a lot of 12 string and like some instruments that don't belong in that like sort of synth world that I've tried to bring in. I really enjoyed like just like, I think when I was a bit younger, I was like really acoustic instrument averse. Like I was like synths only, like only synths. Maybe some electric guitar. Like I think maybe because I grew up playing like piano and acoustic guitar, like I was like really did not want to go back there. So I was like in a huge sort of synth phase for huge amounts. But I actually really enjoy the way that synths kind of blend with organic instruments. I think that's something that's like really it sort of just has this warmth to it that I think a lot of sort of just electronic music doesn't. I'm not sure in terms of like maybe where things wouldn't go. I can't say I'm very maybe in sometime in the future, but like I don't think it would maybe go in like the metal direction. I don't feel like I'm musically equipped to take it there. I've never really been into metal. Rock and like sort of alternative rock and indie guitar music for sure, but like yeah, I think sort of death metal would would I don't know if I'd go there. Not to say that it might, I don't know, who knows what might happen. I might have a fall and bump my head and think, right, let's do a metal album.
Do you think it could become more pop, or do you think that you would consciously always try and avoid it sounding too commercial?
Yeah, I think in the past I've worked with quite a lot of different producers and not released things, and it has gone really pop. I'd quite like to do like a super pop album for like a laugh, like just to see how far you could push it, like ridiculously poppy, like like I love like Caroline Polachek and stuff like that. Like she's super poppy and things, and it's great. But I think there would be something in me that just would want it to sound a bit more like shit. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd want it to just be like, I just want it to sound a little bit less clean and like polished. I just want it to sound like it'd be dropped on the floor a few times, like because I think that's just me. Like I'm not the most precise and precise polished person. I think I'm a little bit sort of not careless at times, but maybe my mum used to always say slapdash sometimes.
Messy. Let's use the word messy. That's a great term, isn't it? I mean, it's my favorite term for describing humans, full stop. It's messy.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little messy.
I just think that, that's great because, humans are complex, messy beings. And, sometimes you feel like, especially where some music's gone these days, it's so formulaic to fit into that kind of algorithm that it doesn't have any of that messiness in. And I think it's, you need artists that actually make people think. Dare I say it?
I think people get really sick of algorithmic mood music, I think, soon, and then they'll crave messiness. And
absolutely. Well, do you ever think about what people who listen to your music are thinking while they're listening to your music? Are you ever conscious of that, or?
I don't know actually. That's quite a good question. Um, I like to think that it kind of transports people into a sort of timelessness, I suppose. Um, I think that's really the main thing, is that I almost like the sort of, I don't want to say level of nostalgia, but like almost this sort of like, yeah, like a world where I like for myself personally, when I'm listening to music, to be sort of transported into a world where you can sort of exist in, like a book, I suppose. Like, so I often think, maybe I hope that that comes across, like when people listen to the music, that
Yeah.
um
Is there a track from your years of listening to music that you think kind of encapsulates that for you?
I think like there's quite a few. Like one of the songs that's like immediately springs to mind is the Logical song by Supertramp.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Before it was ruined by Scooter.
before it was ruined, I think because my parents used to listen to Supertramp a lot, but to me it just sounds like the 70s. It sounds like what I can imagine the 70s was like. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
what real sort of um authoritative, like, sort of way of growing up, and like in the school system, and like the, with like everything was a lot stricter, and like Supertramp that sing like a lot about like nuns and like
Yeah,
sisters.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you know what? I think that's a really interesting track to choose as well. And the other reason I think it's quite interesting is I think it's in terms of sort of time, I think it's quite a transitional track as well, because I think not only does it really kind of sit in the period it's from, which was the 70s,
Mm,
but you can kind of hear where music is going to go in that track in the 80s, because almost kind of the sort of stabby sort of, um, way that that's played, dun, 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 and whatever, that was kind of overcooked in the 80s. You
yeah.
think of all of those bands that like Europe and whatever, that kind of like, final countdown, da, 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 da. It's kind of like, and taking that template and sort of like, you know, taking it to another level,
Mm,
as it were. But you said, do you know what I mean? It is quite transitional. It feels like that is a track that was kind of both looking back and looking forward at the same time. And I
right,
think tracks like that are really quite special.
totally.
There you go. A beautiful thing. If people, as of today, having now met you, I love the fact that it's getting dark outside as you're doing this. This is great. Just it looks great with the light. It's almost like mood lighting that we made happen. If people have, listened to you talking from, yeah, I'm actually with you on that. I do. I think I could go down the pub and spend hours talking, and this sounds like the kind of person that I could, listen to and get to know better. Where would you like them to start in terms of your music? Which sort of song do you think you would like to push them towards?
The ones that I've already released, do you think?
Yeah.
It's funny, like I'm always sort of more up for people listening to the latest stuff, because I think that's the stuff that I feel is the most relevant. I think at the time, like I released like a record a few years ago. Um, I'm like sick to death of. I feel like it's almost like Ruby Wax has this book that she wrote that says something, and it's like she never reads her things that she's published. Like, she never goes back and reads them because she can't stand to do that, I think.
Mm.
And I sort of almost feel that a little bit with like albums sometimes. Like, it takes me quite a long time to sort of go back and never listen to it. And when I do, I feel like I'm so critical. I notice all like the wee mistakes, or things don't quite sound as good, or I've definitely written better songs. So I think I always personally probably quite a bad person to ask that question. But I think the newer stuff I think is definitely like is maybe more of a venture. I think that the older stuff is I wrote when I was quite young and still kind of figuring stuff out, which is also fun. But like I think definitely the newer stuff is going to be.
Well,
feels
then that's where we shall ask people to start. Do you think one day you might revisit the older stuff? I mean, talking to a lot of musicians, especially older musicians, I find that people tend to go in circles, and sometimes, you know, it takes a while for people to get to the point where they go, do you know what? I'm actually going to go back there because there was something there that was all right.
Yeah.
I just need to now think about how I would do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be quite powerful as well when you can finally get to the point where you can go, do you know what? I can actually live with that.
Yeah. I think I'm not there yet. I think because I'm only on like record number 2.
It's too early. It's
too
too
early.
early.
When I maybe done like 3 or 4 more, I'll be like, oh God, I've ran out of ideas. I'm gonna go back to the start.
Go back to the start, have a listen, and you know, realize that actually the journey is just as important. You know, I think that's an important thing for anyone to learn, isn't it, in life as well, is that, you know, the journey is important. How you get there is important. And sometimes once you feel comfortable with that, going back to the beginning is, and just going, well, you know what, at the time that was all right. I thought I turned the thing off on my phone and now it's still going. I have no idea why. So apologies for that. There we go. Technology, complete meltdown today. But Louise, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in to talk music. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have.
Folks, this is wonderful Louise, who goes under the moniker of Goodnight Louisa. I didn't even ask you about that. Why did you pick that name to go under?
It's funny. I've been kind of dreading someone asking me that question because I feel like I've not.
And now I have.
Yeah. I actually just thought it sounded good, and Goodnight Louise sounded rubbish, so I was like Goodnight Louisa sounded better because often people are confused because my name's Louise.
It sounds like something that would be said at the end of a chapter of a book, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's go with that. Maybe I'll make up some kind of elaborate story around it.
If you're an author out there and you'd like to you know, write the story behind Goodnight Louisa, then do let us know. Get in touch with Louise, and you know, maybe even write the book. You never know. Maybe it would become like a famous children's book or whatever. You know, these sort of things happen. One guest that was on not so long ago, she wrote a song called Firefly. This is Anne Buckle, and then someone turned it into a children's book. How lovely is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So you never know, you see.
You never know.
Maybe one day someone will write the book that has Goodnight Louisa in it, which then gives you the name, and then you can say, well, there you are. It's kind of a premonition, and all things are good. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. If you've enjoyed this today, please do go and share with your friends and family. As usual, press all of the buttons to do the likes and the follows and everything else. And we will see you soon for more of my music. Until then,